The massive alien ship floated in the darkness of space like a metal mountain. Its hull stretched for miles, covered in weapons that could turn planets into dust. Inside the command center, Admiral Vextar looked at the holographic display showing a small blue world spinning peacefully around its yellow star. "Earth," he said with a laugh that sounded like grinding metal. "Such a pretty little world. Too bad its people are too stupid to know what's coming." The other alien officers around the table joined in his laughter. They had done this many times before. Find a weak planet, show up with their massive fleet, demand surrender, and watch the terrified inhabitants give up without a fight. It was almost boring now. Commander Zekanol pointed at the display with one of his forearms. "Our scouts report. They have primitive nuclear weapons and some basic space travel. Nothing that could scratch our shields." Vextar nodded. The humans had managed to put a few small stations in orbit around their world, and had even sent some tiny probes to other planets in their system. But compared to the Zephyrian Empire's technology, they might as well be throwing rocks. "How many ships do they have?" asked another officer. "Maybe 50 combat vessels total," Zekanol replied. "All of them smaller than our smallest scout ship. Their largest warship has the firepower of a mining laser." The aliens laughed again. 50 ships against their fleet of 200. It would be over in minutes. Far below on Earth, Commander Jake Morrison stood in the control room of the Deep Space Monitoring Station, watching the same display but with very different feelings. The massive alien fleet had appeared at the edge of their solar system 3 days ago, and every hour brought them closer to Earth. "Sir, we're getting more detailed scans now," said Lieutenant Amy Walker, not looking up from her console. "The lead ship is over 6 miles long. I count at least 40 weapon ports on just the side we can see." Jake rubbed his tired eyes. He had not slept much since the aliens arrived. None of them had. What about the rest of the fleet? 212 ships total. The smallest ones are still twice the size of our biggest destroyer. Amy's voice stayed calm, but Jake could hear the worry underneath. The door to the control room opened and President Lisa Carter walked in, followed by General Ben Hayes and Admiral Kate Sullivan. The president looked older than she had just a week ago. The weight of knowing that alien invaders were coming for Earth had aged everyone. "What's the latest?" President Carter asked. Jake pointed to the main screen. "They'll reach Earth orbit in 18 hours. We've tried sending radio messages, but they're not responding to any communication attempts." General Hayes crossed his arms. "Maybe they don't want to talk. Or maybe they just don't think we're worth talking to," Admiral Sullivan added grimly. "President." Carter stared at the screen showing the approaching alien fleet. Each dot of light represented a ship that could probably destroy entire cities. "Have we heard anything from the other nations?" "Everyone's mobilizing what they can," Jake replied. "But we all know our combined fleets won't last long against that." The room fell quiet. Everyone knew the math. Earth's total military space force consisted of 53 combat ships, 12 space stations, and various orbital defense platforms. The aliens had brought 4 times as many ships, each one more powerful than anything humans had ever built. "Sir," Amy called out suddenly, "we're receiving a transmission from the alien fleet." "Put it on screen," President Carter ordered. The display flickered and showed the face of Admiral Vextar. His skin was gray and rough like stone, with 4 eyes that glowed red in the dark. When he spoke, his voice was deep and threatening. "Primitive beings of Earth," Vextar began. "I am Admiral Vextar of the Zephyrian Empire. Your small world now belongs to us. You have 2 choices. Surrender now and become our slaves, or resist and be destroyed completely." Jake felt his hands clench into fists. The alien's tone was full of arrogance, like he was talking to children. "You have one of your Earth rotations to decide," Vextar continued. After that, we will begin the conquest of your world. Do not make this harder than it needs to be. Your weapons cannot harm us. Your ships are toys compared to ours. Accept your fate." The transmission ended, leaving the control room in silence. "Toys," General Hayes repeated angrily. "He called our ships toys." Admiral Sullivan was already working on her tablet. "I'm ordering all our fleets to defensive positions. If they want a fight, we'll give them one." President Carter nodded. "Do it. Send word to all our allies. If this is humanity's last stand, we'll make it count." As the military leaders rushed out to prepare Earth's defenses, Jake stayed at his post, watching the alien fleet get closer. Amy Walker sat beside him, monitoring communications from around the world. "Jake," she said quietly, "do you really think we have a chance?" Jake looked at the numbers on his screen again. 200 alien warships against 50 human ones. It seemed hopeless, but something inside him refused to give up. "You know what, Amy? Maybe we don't have the biggest ships or the most advanced weapons, but those aliens made one big mistake." "What's that?" Jake smiled grimly. "They think they know everything about us. They think we're just another weak species that will roll over and play dead when they show up with their big fleet." Amy looked confused. "Aren't we? Have you ever studied human history? Every time someone thought we were beaten, every time the odds were impossible, we found a way to fight back. We don't give up. It's not in our nature." On the other side of the solar system, Captain Danny Rodriguez floated in the command center of the space station New Horizon. His job was to coordinate between Earth's orbital defenses and the approaching fleet of human warships. "Danny," came a voice over the radio. It was Captain Nicole Davis aboard the destroyer Earth's Pride. "Are you seeing what I'm seeing?" Danny looked at his tactical display. The alien fleet had spread out into attack formation, with their largest ships in the center and smaller vessels forming a protective screen around them. "Yeah, I see it. They're not even trying to hide their strategy. They think this will be easy. Maybe it will be," Nicole replied. "Those ships are massive." "Size isn't everything," Danny said, though he was not sure he believed it himself. Back on Earth, Dr. Alex Chen sat in his laboratory, studying the alien transmissions they had intercepted. As Earth's top expert on alien technology, he had been working around the clock to learn everything he could about their enemy. What he found was both encouraging and terrifying. The Zephyrian Empire had conquered 17 different star systems. They were experts at defeating other species through overwhelming force and intimidation. But every species they had conquered had surrendered quickly when faced with superior numbers. Alex pulled up files on his computer, showing the history of human warfare. Humans were different. They had spent thousands of years fighting each other, learning every possible way to win battles, even when outnumbered. They had developed strategies for fighting from disadvantaged positions. They had learned to use their enemy's strength against them. More importantly, humans had learned to keep fighting, even when defeat seemed certain. The aliens were about to learn something that no other species in the galaxy had taught them. Sometimes, attacking the seemingly weakest opponent can be the biggest mistake you ever make. As the countdown clock on every screen around the world ticked toward zero, humanity prepared for a battle that would change the galaxy forever. The Zephyrian Empire expected an easy victory against primitive humans. They were about to discover just how wrong they could be. The Zephyrian fleet moved into Earth's orbital space like a slow-moving storm of metal and death. Admiral Vextar stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the small blue planet rotate below them. He felt pleased with himself. In just a few hours, this world would belong to the Empire. "Admiral," called out his communications officer, "we are receiving signals from the planet's surface. Multiple sources." "Let me hear them," Vextar commanded. The bridge speakers filled with dozens of different human languages. Panicked voices in English, Chinese, Spanish, and others. Some were pleading for mercy. Others were shouting defiance. A few were just screaming in terror. Vextar smiled with satisfaction. This was exactly what he expected from a primitive species facing their doom, fear and chaos. Soon would come the surrender messages from their leaders. "Sir," the communications officer said again, "we have a transmission from someone calling himself the President of Earth." "Put it through." President Carter appeared on the main screen. She sat behind a desk in what looked like an underground bunker. Her face was calm, but her eyes showed the strain of the last few days. "Admiral Vextar," she began. "I am President Lisa Carter of the United Earth Defense Council. We have received your demands and we have an answer for you." Vextar leaned forward in his command chair. Finally, the surrender he was waiting for. "We refuse," President Carter said simply. "Earth will not surrender to you or anyone else. If you want our world, you will have to take it from us." The alien bridge fell silent. Vextar's 4 eyes widened in surprise. In over 30 conquered worlds, no species had ever refused his initial demand. "You cannot be serious," Vextar replied. "You have seen our fleet. Your weapons cannot harm us. Your ships are pathetic compared to ours." "Maybe," President Carter answered, "but this is our home. And humans do not give up their homes without a fight." The transmission ended, leaving Vextar staring at a blank screen. His officers looked at each other in confusion. This had never happened before. "Admiral," Commander Zekanol said carefully, "perhaps they do not understand the situation. Should we demonstrate our power?" Vextar nodded slowly. "Yes, destroy one of their space stations. That should make them see reason." On the human space station Liberty Point, Captain Amy Walker watched the alien fleet through the observation window. The enemy ships hung in space like giant metal predators, their weapon ports glowing with energy. "Amy," came Danny Rodriguez's voice over the radio from New Horizons Station. "We just got word from Earth Command. The aliens want to make an example of someone." Amy felt her stomach drop. "Are we the target?" "Looks like it. 3 of their destroyers are moving toward your position." Amy looked around at her crew of 30 people. They were scientists, engineers, and support staff. Liberty Point was a research station, not a military base. It had no weapons and only basic shields. "All hands," Amy announced over the station intercom. "This is the captain. Prepare for evacuation to the escape pods." But as her crew rushed to the escape pod bays, Amy made a decision that surprised everyone, including herself. "Belay that order," she called out. All hands returned to stations. Her first officer, Lieutenant Ryan Foster, looked at her in shock. "Captain, those alien ships will destroy us in seconds." "Maybe," Amy replied, "but I just realized something. They chose to attack a research station instead of a military target. They want to scare us, not fight us." She opened a communication channel to the approaching alien ships. "Zephyrian vessels, this is Captain Amy Walker of Liberty Point. You are in violation of Earth space. Turn around and leave now." On the lead Zephyrian destroyer, the alien captain laughed. "Foolish human. Your station will be dust in moments." "Will it?" Amy asked calmly. "Take a closer look at your sensors." The alien captain frowned and checked his displays. What he saw made his blood run cold. Liberty Point was not just a research station. Hidden beneath its civilian exterior were weapon systems that his sensors had never seen before. "Impossible," the alien whispered. Amy smiled grimly. "You should have done better research before coming here. Fire all batteries." Liberty Point erupted with weapons fire. But these were not the primitive human weapons the aliens expected. Streams of energy that seemed to bend space itself struck the Zephyrian destroyers. Their shields, designed to stop conventional weapons, offered no protection at all. The first alien ship exploded in a ball of fire. The second lost power and began spinning out of control. The third tried to retreat, but found itself caught in some kind of energy web that held it in place. What just happened? The trapped alien captain screamed over the radio. "You made a mistake," Amy replied. "You assumed you knew everything about us. You were wrong." Across the solar system, similar scenes were playing out. Human ships that had appeared small and weak suddenly revealed hidden capabilities. Space stations that looked like simple research facilities opened fire with weapons that the aliens could not understand or defend against. Admiral Vextar watched his tactical display in growing horror as red warning lights appeared throughout his fleet. Ships were taking damage from weapons that should not exist. His supposedly invincible armada was being hurt by primitives. How is this possible? He roared. Dr. Maria Santos sat in a hidden control room deep beneath the surface of Earth's moon. Around her, dozens of technicians worked at computer stations that connected to systems throughout the solar system. "Maria," came Jake Morrison's voice over the secure communication link. "The aliens are starting to panic. Their attack formation is breaking up." Maria smiled as she looked at her main display screen. It showed every human ship and station in the solar system, as well as the locations of the alien fleet. "Jake, remember that crashed alien scout ship we found 10 years ago?" "Of course, we learned a lot from studying it." "We learned more than you know," Maria replied. "We didn't just figure out how their technology works. We figured out how to beat it." She pressed a series of buttons on her control panel. Throughout the solar system, hidden systems came online. Satellites that had been disguised as space junk suddenly revealed themselves as weapon platforms. Asteroids that had been mined for resources turned out to be hollow shells hiding massive guns. "My God," Jake whispered as his sensors showed him what was really in Earth's solar system. "How long have we been preparing for this?" "Since the day we found that scout ship," Maria answered. "We knew they would come eventually. We just didn't know when." Captain Nicole Davis commanded the human destroyer Earth's Pride as it engaged 3 Zephyrian cruisers. Her ship was outnumbered and outgunned, but Nicole had advantages the aliens did not expect. "Target their shield generators," she ordered her weapons officer. "Use the quantum charges." "Quantum charges away," came the reply. The alien ships tried to intercept the human missiles, but the quantum charges seemed to teleport through their defenses. Each one found its target perfectly, shutting down alien shield systems one by one. "Impossible," the lead Zephyrian captain transmitted. "Your weapons cannot do that." "They can if you know the frequency of your shield harmonics," Nicole replied with a grin. "Thanks for the free scan data when you entered our system." The battle continued for hours. What had started as a simple conquest was turning into a nightmare for the Zephyrian Empire. Their superior numbers meant nothing when their enemies seemed to know exactly how to counter every weapon and defense they had. Admiral Vextar found himself facing a truth that no Zephyrian commander had ever confronted. Before, they were losing. "Sir," his tactical officer reported with fear in his voice, "we have lost 30% of our fleet. Our weapons are having minimal effect on their defenses." Vextar looked at the tactical display. The small blue world that had seemed so helpless was surrounded by a defensive network that his intelligence had completely missed. Worse, the humans were not just defending, they were attacking. How did we miss this? He asked himself out loud. On Earth, in the deep command bunker, President Carter watched the battle reports with amazement. The plan that had been years in the making was working better than anyone had dared hope. "Madam President," General Hayes reported, "our losses are minimal. The aliens are retreating to defensive positions." President Carter nodded. "Signal all our forces. Do not pursue beyond Earth orbit. Let them think about what just happened." In space, the surviving Zephyrian ships pulled back from Earth, their commanders trying to understand how they had walked into such a perfect trap. Admiral Vextar stared at the small blue planet that had just handed his mighty fleet its first defeat in decades. "Send a message to the Galactic Council," he ordered quietly. "Tell them we need reinforcements." But even as he said it, Vextar wondered if reinforcements would be enough. The humans had done something no other species had ever managed. They had made the Zephyrian Empire look weak, and in a galaxy where strength was everything, that was a very dangerous thing to do. The Galactic Council chambers had not seen chaos like this in over 1,000 years. Representatives from 47 different species filled the massive hall, all talking at once in dozens of languages. The translation systems were working overtime to keep up with the flood of confused and frightened voices. At the center of it all sat Council Chairman Teshalan, an ancient being whose species had been traveling between stars when most others were still learning to make fire. His 4 arms moved nervously as he tried to restore order to the chamber. "Silence," he commanded, his voice echoing through the hall. "We must have order." Slowly, the noise died down. All eyes turned to the holographic display in the center of the chamber, which showed live feed from the battle at Earth. Alien ships were exploding while small human vessels darted between them like angry insects. Ambassador Zeekther of the Eltharian Republic stood up from his seat. His blue skin was pale with shock. "Chairman, this cannot be real. Our sensors must be malfunctioning." "The data has been verified 17 times, Chairman Teshalan replied grimly. "What we are seeing is actually happening." On the display, another Zephyrian cruiser disappeared in a ball of fire. The assembled council members watched in stunned silence as humanity's hidden fleet tore through ships that should have been able to destroy planets. "How is this possible?" asked Ambassador Keelista of the Hegemony. "Our intelligence reports said the humans were primitives. They'd barely have space travel." "Apparently our intelligence was wrong," the chairman said quietly. In the back of the chamber, a small figure in a hooded robe watched the proceedings with great interest. Ambassador Veltar of the Shadow Collective had been observing human activities for decades. Unlike the other species, his people specialized in gathering information that others missed. "Perhaps," Veltar said, his voice carrying clearly through the chamber, "we should ask ourselves why our intelligence was so wrong." All eyes turned to him. The Shadow Collective rarely spoke in council sessions, preferring to listen and learn. "Explain," Chairman Teshalan commanded. Veltar pulled back his hood, revealing a face that looked almost human except for the silver eyes and pointed ears. "My people have been watching Earth for 50 of their years. We knew they had found crashed alien technology. We knew they were studying it, but we assumed they were too primitive to understand it." He gestured toward the display showing the ongoing battle. "We were wrong. The humans did not just study alien technology, they improved it." A murmur of disbelief ran through the chamber. No species had ever improved Zephyrian technology. It was considered impossible. "You are suggesting," said Ambassador Taishka of the Trade Federation, "that these humans are more advanced than the Zephyrian Empire?" "I am suggesting," Veltar replied, "that they are more clever than we gave them credit for." Meanwhile, on Earth, the battle had moved from space to the planet's surface. Zephyrian landing craft had managed to reach the ground before the orbital defenses were fully active. Now alien soldiers were learning why Earth was considered a death world by those who knew about such things. Colonel Steve Baker crouched behind the ruins of a building in what used to be downtown Chicago. Around him, his soldiers prepared for the next wave of alien attackers. The Zephyrians had superior weapons and armor, but they were learning that fighting humans on their home planet was very different from conquering other species. "Steve," came Sergeant Major Linda Park's voice over the radio. "We have 50 bogies moving up Michigan Avenue. They're using their hover tanks for cover." Steve smiled grimly. The aliens were using standard conquest tactics: overwhelming firepower, heavy armor, and intimidation. It worked well against most species. Humans were not most species. Linda, remember what we learned about their tanks' blind spots? Roger that. Setting up the ambush now. Steve watched through his scope as the alien formation moved confidently down the street. The Zephyrian soldiers were twice as tall as humans and covered in armor that could stop most conventional weapons. Their hover tanks floated 3 feet off the ground, bristling with energy cannons. They looked unstoppable. That was exactly what Steve was counting on. "All units," he whispered into his radio. "Execute Plan Custer." From sewers, ruined buildings, and hidden bunkers, human soldiers emerged. But instead of attacking the aliens directly, they targeted the ground beneath the hover tanks. Explosive charges that had been placed during the night detonated in sequence, creating massive craters. The hover tanks, designed to float over smooth surfaces, suddenly found themselves trapped in holes they could not escape from. The Zephyrian infantry, used to fighting in the open with tank support, were suddenly exposed and surrounded. "What is happening?" screamed the alien commander over his radio. Steve stood up from his hiding place, his rifle trained on the trapped. "Aliens, welcome to Earth," he called out in the aliens' own language. "Population, 7 billion angry humans." The battle was over in minutes. The aliens who surrendered were treated well, according to human laws of war. Those who continued fighting discovered why humans had been the apex predators on their planet for thousands of years. In space, Captain Nicole Davis received new orders from Earth Command. Her ship, Earth's Pride, was to lead a small task force to the edge of the solar system. Their mission was not to attack the retreating Zephyrian fleet, but to deliver a message. "Are you sure about this, Nicole?" asked her weapons officer, Lieutenant Tom Brady. "We're going to fly right up to their biggest ship and just talk to them," Nicole nodded. "That's the plan. We want them to go home and tell everyone what happened." Here, the Earth's Pride approached the Zephyrian flagship with 2 escort ships. The alien fleet immediately powered up their weapons, but the human ships made no aggressive moves. "Zephyrian vessel," Nicole transmitted. "This is Captain Nicole Davis of Earth's Pride. I have a message for Admiral Vextar." After a long pause, the alien admiral's face appeared on her screen. He looked older than he had just days before. His eyes showed the strain of commanding a defeated fleet. "What do you want, human?" Vextar asked tiredly. "I want to give you something to think about," Nicole replied. "You came here expecting to find a weak species that would surrender without a fight. Instead, you found something you did not expect." "And what was that?" Nicole smiled. "You found humans. We are not like the other species you have conquered. We do not surrender, we do not give up, and we do not forget." She leaned forward in her captain's chair. "Admiral, you lost this battle because you made assumptions about us. Do not make that mistake again. Are you threatening us?" Vextar asked. "No," Nicole replied. "I am educating you. Go back to your empire. Tell them what happened here. Tell them that Earth is under human protection, and humans protect what is theirs." Back on Earth, Dr. Tony Martinez stood in the secret control room beneath the moon's surface. Around him, technicians monitored systems that the aliens still did not know existed. The Luna defense grid was humanity's greatest secret, and it had not even been fully activated during the battle. "Tony," came Jake Morrison's voice over the secure channel. "The alien fleet is leaving the system." Tony smiled as he looked at his displays. The massive weapons hidden throughout the moon were capable of destroying capital ships with single shots. If the aliens had known about them, they never would have attacked in the first place. "Good," Tony replied. "But keep monitoring their communications. I want to know what they're telling their command." The intercepted alien transmissions made for interesting reading. Admiral Vextar was reporting to his superiors that Earth was not the primitive world they had expected. His descriptions of human tactics and technology were causing panic throughout the Zephyrian Empire. More importantly, Word was spreading to other species. The galaxy was learning that a small blue world in an unremarkable star system had defeated one of the most feared military forces in known space. President Carter sat in her office, reading reports from around the world. The damage from the alien attack had been minimal, thanks to the quick victory. But the implications of what had happened were enormous. General Hayes entered her office, carrying a tablet full of new intelligence reports. "Madam President, we're intercepting communications from dozens of different alien species. They're all talking about what happened here." "What are they saying?" "Most of them are scared," Hayes replied. "A few are impressed, but they all want to know the same thing." "Which is?" Hayes smiled. "They want to know who these humans are and why nobody told them we were dangerous." President Carter looked out her window at the night sky. Somewhere out there, the news of humanity's victory was spreading across the galaxy. Species that had never heard of Earth were learning that humans existed and that they were not to be underestimated. "General," she said quietly, "I think our quiet days are over." "Yes, ma'am, the galaxy knows about us now." President Carter nodded. "Then we better be ready for whatever comes next." In the depths of space, the Zephyrian fleet limped home to report their failure. Behind them, Earth continued to spin peacefully around its sun. But the small blue world was no longer unknown to the galaxy. The question that had brought the aliens to Earth in the first place now had an answer. Who would be mad enough to attack Earth? As it turned out, only someone who did not know what humans were capable of: the Galax. News of the Zephyrian defeat spread across the galaxy faster than light itself. On trade stations, in diplomatic lounges, and in the private chambers of planetary leaders, everyone was talking about the same thing. A species that nobody had taken seriously had just destroyed one of the most powerful fleets in known space. The emergency session of the Galactic Council was the largest gathering in the organization's history. Species that had not attended a meeting in centuries sent their best diplomats. Even the mysterious Void Walkers, who rarely interacted with other races, had observers present. Chairman Taishalan looked out at the packed chamber with growing concern. In his long life, he had seen many crises, but nothing like this. The established order of the galaxy was shifting, and nobody knew what would happen next. "We are here to discuss the Earth incident," he announced. "The reports have been verified. The human species has defeated a full Zephyrian battle fleet." A wave of nervous chatter filled the chamber. Many of the representatives were seeing the battle footage for the first time. Watching human ships tear through alien vessels that should have been invincible was disturbing to species that had based their entire understanding of galactic power on Zephyrian superiority. Ambassador Taishka of the Trade Federation raised one of her 6 arms. "Chairman, my people have done business throughout this galaxy for thousands of years. We have never encountered this species called humans. How did they develop such advanced technology without anyone knowing?" Before the chairman could answer, a new voice spoke from the back of the chamber. Perhaps because nobody was looking, all eyes turned to see Captain Vextar, one of the few Zephyrian officers who had survived the battle. His armor was damaged, and his usual arrogance was gone. He looked like a soldier who had seen too much. "Captain," Chairman Taishalan said carefully, "you were there. Tell us what happened." Vextar walked slowly to the center of the chamber. The other representatives watched him with a mixture of curiosity and fear. If the Zephyrians could be defeated, what did that mean for the rest of them? "We underestimated them," Vextar said. "Simply, everything we thought we knew about humans was wrong." He activated a holographic projector that showed images from the battle. "Look at their tactics. When we attacked their space station, they did not panic. They did not try to run. They fought back with weapons we had never seen before." The images showed human soldiers in ground combat. On their planet, they used their environment against us. They knew every street, every building, every hiding place. They fought like they had been preparing for this war their entire lives. Ambassador Kilista of the hegemony leaned forward. But their technology, where did it come from? Vextar's expression grew grim. We found evidence that they discovered. One of our old scout ships decades ago. They studied it, learned from it, and then made it better. A shocked silence filled the chamber. No species had ever improved upon Zephyrian technology. They did not just copy our weapons, Vextar continued. They understood how they worked and created countermeasures. Every time we fired, they seemed to know exactly how to defend against it. In the far corner of the chamber, Ambassador Veltar of the Shadow Collective smiled slightly. His people had been watching humanity for years, and what Vextar was describing matched their own observations. Humans were not just tool users. They were tool. I'm PROVERS. Chairman Taishalan stood up from his seat. Captain Vextar, what is your assessment of human military capabilities? The Zephyrian officer was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his words sent a chill through the chamber. In my opinion, Chairman, humanity represents the greatest military threat this galaxy has ever seen. The chamber erupted in noise as representatives began arguing with each other. Some species wanted to immediately open diplomatic relations with Earth. Others suggested forming an alliance to contain the human threat. A few even proposed surrendering preemptively. On Earth, President Carter sat in her office reading the intelligence reports that were flooding in from across the galaxy. The alien communication networks were buzzing with talk about humanity's victory. Some of it was fearful, some was respectful, but all of it was focused on the small blue planet that had changed everything. Madam President, General Hayes entered with a new batch of reports. We're getting contact requests from over 30 different species. Everyone wants to talk to us now. President Carter smiled sadly. Funny how nobody wanted to talk to us before we proved we could fight. What should we tell them? Tell them we'll consider opening diplomatic relations, but only on our terms. We're not interested in joining their councils or following their rules until we understand what kind of galaxy we're dealing with. Meanwhile, in a secret facility deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, Dr. Rachel Lee was working on humanity's next surprise. The victory over the Zephyrians had been impressive, but Earth scientists knew that other threats would come. Rachel, her assistant Dr. Paul Kim called out. The new shield generators are ready for testing. Rachel looked at the prototype on the test bench. It was based on technology recovered from the Zephyrian ships they had captured during the battle. But like everything else humans touched, they had made it better. If this works, Rachel said, our ships will be able to survive direct hits from planet-killer weapons. And if it doesn't work, Rachel grinned, then we'll figure out what went wrong and try again. That's what humans do. Across the galaxy, the ripple effects of humanity's victory continued to spread. The Alphenian Republic, which had been at war with the Corvan Empire for 20 years, suddenly agreed to peace talks. Both sides realized that their conflict was pointless when a species like humanity existed. The Traitors' Alliance began rerouting their shipping lanes to avoid Earth's solar system, not out of fear, but out of respect. Nobody wanted to accidentally provoke the species that had embarrassed the Zephyrian Empire. Most importantly, several smaller species that had been living under Zephyrian protection began to wonder if they needed protection at all. If humans could defeat the mighty Zephyrian fleet, maybe the galaxy was not as dangerous as they had been told. Admiral Kate Sullivan stood on the bridge of Earth's newest starship, the Constitution. It was humanity's first vessel designed specifically for interstellar travel, incorporating technology learned from the captured alien ships. Admiral, her navigation officer Lieutenant Chris Johnson reported, "We've reached the edge of Zephyrian space." Kate looked at the display showing the alien star system ahead of them. This was not an attack mission. Earth had decided to send a message, and Kate was the messenger. "Open a channel to the Zephyrian homeworld," she ordered. The main screen flickered to life, showing the surprised face of a Zephyrian communication officer. "This is Admiral Kate Sullivan of the Earth Defense Force," she announced. "I have a message for your leaders." Within minutes, she was speaking directly to the Zephyrian High Command. The alien leaders looked nervous as they stared at the human, who had traveled across space to their doorstep. "What do you want?" asked the Zephyrian Supreme Commander. Kate's expression was calm but serious. "I want to make sure we understand each other. Earth has no interest in conquering your empire or destroying your people. But we will defend ourselves against any future attacks." "We understand," the alien commander replied quickly. "Do you?" Kate asked. "Because here's what I think happened. You've been bullying smaller species for so long that you forgot what a real fight looks like. Earth reminded you." She leaned forward in her chair. "Supreme Commander, humanity has existed for thousands of years without knowing about the rest of the galaxy. We developed our technology, our tactics, and our determination through fighting each other. We learned how to win wars that seemed impossible to win." The alien commander shifted uncomfortably. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying that every conflict in human history was preparation for the day we would meet species like yours. We didn't know it at the time, but we were getting ready for galactic warfare before we even knew the galaxy existed." Kate stood up from her chair. "The Galactic Council wants to know who would be mad enough to attack Earth. The answer is simple. Only someone who doesn't understand what humans are." "And what are humans?" the Zephyrian commander asked quietly. Kate smiled, but it was not a friendly expression. "We are the species that survived on a death world by being tougher than everything else on it. We are the species that fought our way to the top of our planet's food chain using nothing but our brains. And our refusal to give up." She paused to let that sink in. "We are the species that spent our entire history preparing for war without even knowing it. And now we're here." The transmission ended, leaving the Zephyrian leadership to contemplate what they had just heard. Earth was no longer an unknown factor in galactic politics. Humanity had announced itself to the galaxy in the loudest way possible. Back on Earth, President Carter received Kate's report on the mission to Zephyrian space. The message had been delivered clearly. Earth was willing to coexist peacefully with other species, but only as equals, never as subjects. "Madam President," her secretary announced over the intercom, "you have a call from the Galactic Council. They want to discuss Earth's membership." President Carter smiled. "Tell him I'll think about it, but remind them that humans don't join clubs." 6 months had passed since the battle for Earth, and the galaxy was still adjusting to its new reality. Trade routes had been redrawn, old alliances were being questioned, and everyone was talking about the same thing. What were the humans going to do next? The answer came in the form of a sleek human starship that dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of Galactic Council territory. The ship was unlike anything the galaxy had seen before. It moved with a grace that suggested advanced technology, but its weapons were hidden beneath smooth hull plating that gave no hint of its true capabilities. Ambassador Helen Wright sat in her private quarters aboard the Starship Endeavour, reviewing her notes one final time. As humanity's first official representative to the Galactic Council, she carried the hopes and concerns of an entire species. Earth had decided it was time to join the galactic community, but only on human terms. "Ambassador," came the voice of Captain Matt Johnson over the intercom. "We're approaching the Council station. They're requesting permission to board and inspect our ship." Helen smiled. "Tell them no," politely but firmly. "We're here as guests, not prisoners." The Galactic Council station was massive, easily the size of a small moon. It had been built over thousands of years to accommodate representatives from dozens of different species. As the Endeavour approached the docking bay, Helen could see alien ships from across the galaxy. Some she recognized from intelligence reports, others were completely unknown. What she noticed immediately was how they were, all staying away from her ship. Word had spread about human capabilities, and nobody wanted to get too close to the species that had humbled the Zephyrian Empire. The docking bay was filled with alien officials and security personnel. When Helen stepped off her ship, she wore a simple blue uniform that marked her as a representative of Earth, but carried no visible weapons. What the aliens did not know was that human technology had advanced far beyond the need for obvious armaments. Chairman Taishalan greeted her personally, an honor usually reserved for the most powerful species in the galaxy. His forearms moved in what Helen had learned was a gesture of respect among his people. "Ambassador Wright," he said in carefully pronounced English, "welcome to the Galactic Council. We are honored by your presence." Helen nodded politely. "Thank you, Chairman. Earth is interested in learning more about the galactic community." As they walked through the station corridors toward the main council chamber, Helen noticed how other alien representatives reacted to her presence. Some stared with curiosity, others with fear, and a few with what looked like admiration. The human victory over the Zephyrians had made quite an impression. The council chamber itself was even more impressive than the reports had suggested. Representatives from 47 different species sat in tiered seating that rose up around a central speaking area. The diversity was amazing. Beings of every size, shape, and color imaginable, all gathered in one place. Chairman Taishalan gestured for Helen to take the speaking platform. "Representatives of the Galactic Council," he announced. "I present Ambassador Helen Wright of the human species from the planet Earth." The chamber fell silent as Helen walked to the center. She had prepared for this moment for months, studying everything Earth's intelligence services had learned about galactic politics and alien psychology. "Members of the Galactic Council," she began, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber's translation systems. "I come before you today not as a supplicant seeking membership, but as a representative of humanity offering partnership." A murmur ran through the chamber. Most species that addressed the council were asking for protection or trying to join existing power structures. Helen was doing neither. "Earth has learned about the galactic community through conflict," she continued. "The Zephyrian Empire attacked our world expecting easy conquest. They discovered that humans do not surrender, do not give up, and do not forgive unprovoked aggression." Ambassador Zichther of the Eltharian Republic raised one of his hands. "Ambassador Wright, what does humanity want from the galaxy?" Helen smiled. "The same thing we have always wanted. To be left alone to live our lives as we choose. But we have learned that isolation is no longer possible. The galaxy knows about us now, and we must learn to coexist." "And if we refuse your partnership?" asked Ambassador Kilesta of the Hegemony. "Then you refuse it," Helen replied simply. "Earth does not need the Galactic Council's permission to exist. We offer cooperation because we believe it benefits everyone, not because we fear being excluded." The directness of her answer sent another wave of discussion through the chamber. Most species spent decades trying to gain council membership, desperate for the protection and trade opportunities it provided. Humanity was treating it as optional. Captain Vextar, who had been attending council sessions since his return from Earth, stood up from his observer seat. "Ambassador Wright, may I ask a question?" Helen nodded. "Of course, Captain. What are humanity's intentions regarding expansion? Will you be claiming territory beyond your solar system?" Helen had expected this question. It was what everyone really wanted to know. Would humanity become a conquering species like the Zephyrians had been? "Captain, humans have a saying, we judge others by their actions, not their words. Earth will expand into space as our population and technology allow. But we have no interest in taking worlds that belong to others or forcing our way of life. on different species. She paused to look around the chamber. However, any species that threatens human colonies or attacks, human ships will discover that we defend what is ours with the same determination we showed when defending Earth. The message was clear. Humanity would expand, but peacefully. Attack them, however, and face the consequences. Ambassador Veltar of the Shadow Collective spoke from his usual position in the back of the chamber. Ambassador Wright, my people have been observing human development for decades. We know that your species has capabilities beyond what you displayed against the Zephyrians. What are you not telling us? Helen smiled mysteriously. Ambassador Veltar, would you reveal all of your people's secrets to a room full of strangers? The alien ambassador laughed, a sound like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. Point taken. Chairman Tai Shalin raised his hands for silence. Ambassador Wright, the Council must vote on humanity's application for membership. What are your terms? Helen had been waiting for this moment. Earth requests full membership with the same rights and responsibilities as any other Council species. However, we will not accept any restrictions on our military development or deployment of our forces in human space. That is highly unusual, the chairman replied. Council species typically agree to certain limitations on military expansion. Then you will need to make an exception, Helen said calmly. Humans have survived by being prepared for threats. We will not handicap ourselves for the comfort of others. The voting process took 3 hours. Representatives debated in dozens of languages while Helen waited patiently in a side chamber. When she was finally called back, Chairman Tai Shalin announced the results. By a vote of 31 in favor, 12 against, and 4 abstentions, the Galactic Council accepts humanity as a full member species. Applause filled the chamber, though Helen noticed that some species looked less than happy about the decision. Over the following months, humanity began establishing its presence in galactic affairs. Admiral Kate Sullivan led Earth's first interstellar fleet to key positions throughout known space. The mere presence of human warships ended several conflicts as species chose negotiation over risking confrontation with Earth's forces. Dr. Rachel Lee opened the first human research station outside the solar system, beginning collaborative projects with alien scientists. Her work on improving defensive technologies became highly sought after by species that had previously ignored human potential. Captain Matt Johnson established humanity's first diplomatic outpost on the neutral world of Kepler Station. His job was to monitor galactic affairs and ensure that Earth's interests were protected. The changes were not all peaceful. 3 different pirate organizations that had been raiding trade routes for decades suddenly found themselves facing human patrol ships. The pirates learned quickly that humans viewed attacks on civilian vessels as acts of war deserving immediate and overwhelming response. President Carter, now serving her 2nd term, addressed the United Nations on the 1st anniversary of First Contact. A year ago, we thought we were alone in the universe. Today, we are members of a galactic community containing billions of intelligent beings. She paused to look out at the assembled delegates. Some have asked if we regret making contact with the galaxy. The answer is no. Humanity has always been at its best when facing new challenges and exploring new frontiers. The galaxy has learned that humans do not surrender, do not give up, and do not back down from a fight. But they are also learning that we are fair partners, reliable allies, and dangerous enemies only to those who choose to be our enemies. In the depths of space, on worlds throughout the galaxy, the question that had started it all was being answered. In a new way, who would be mad enough to attack Earth? As it turned out, only someone who had not learned the most important lesson in galactic history. When humans say they will defend something, they mean it. When they say they will,